I have to start eventually. I can't keep pump faking. Hi, it's Creme Brulee. I am happy to be here. It is your host. It is your favorite podcaster slash comedian slash follow on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you may follow me. If you don't, do follow me. While we're here, if you listen to the podcast, what do? You rate it in whatever platform. You thumbs up. You subscribe if you're on YouTube. I've never done that. I've been real unprofessional, and I try to want to just do art, but every other podcast starts out by doing all that stuff. So I guess I should too. I do want you to listen but you're already listening. You know what I mean? It's like you're here. So, oh no, I want it, that stuff's for promotion and growth. I think that's for growth. You need the analytics. I should do my research. But you should like the podcast, subscribe to it on whatever platform you listen to. Send me money on Cash App. Also, just if you're in a mood, Creme Brulee PDX on Cash App. Just if you're in a mood, you know what I mean? If there's any Medicis or any just like guilty white folk out there who want to be able to continue moving through the world as the ignoramus you are, you can do that. Just send me a little cash, send me a little payola, and I represent the blacks, and we will look the other way. I represent the blacks, man. How do y'all feel about the word blacks, right? Like, it's not racist, but I don't love hearing it. But it's like it's like Jews. It's like Jews where it's like technically correct or fine to say sometimes, but once you throw a little on it, it becomes problematic. So that's how we're. How are y'all doing? You'll probably be able to see this is, I think, going to be a longer episode. The second half of this episode is going to be a conversation with my good friend Zai. That's wide-ranging, and when I enter that segment, we'll talk more about it. But at the beginning, you're stuck with me. Hey, what's going on? I really just wanted to talk. It's been a really fun past couple of days for me. I realized, because I just was going to talk about doing comedy in the past week, I've never really talked about the fact that I'm a comedian on here. Yeah, the fact that I'm doing this because I felt insecure even then saying it. I'm like, I'm a comedian. Because even if you're right, it's not like admirable. But yeah, I do be comedy, and this was a great week for me. Just to lay down what my journey through stand-up has been. I've been at this point telling jokes on stage for live audiences for about 5 years. I started about 2 years before the pandemic, and then after the pandemic happened, and I became organizer / pseudo activist, and then I mentally and emotionally crashed out, and then I had a kid, and then I went to rehab, and so my pandemic, I didn't start back doing comedy until about 2 years ago at this point. So it feels like I've been doing it for longer, because I think I may have sprinkled in a couple sets during the pandemic at different various stages, and I did have like 2 fake comebacks where I started again, and then just like, I'm a person, if I'm not going to throw my everything into something, I don't even want to think about it, because I'm going to want to throw, I can't half-ass things. If I'm going to do them, they have to be to a certain, it's what I feel like is level of quality, or else I don't want to be interested. That's how I feel about podcasting. Like, I've wanted to do a podcast pretty much always, but you have to be me. For me, it's like I want to do it at a point where I can do it like I'm doing now, where I can release consistently, where I know I can have a guest every now and then, or I just know what the vision is and it fits into my life. And I feel like now I kind of, traction's not the right word, but it feels like the right time in my ascension comedically to get onto the stand-up. Because, like, you have to, as a comedian in 2025, yeah, it's 2025. You have to do a podcast. Um, excuse me. I'm not going to get into the whole, like, the fact that the business of comedy and writing jobs have kind of popped, but for reasons like if you want to make money independently doing stand-up comedy, one of the ways you need to supplement that income is by getting some Patreon subscribers. So we're clearly not there yet. I'm not going to like start asking people to donate to the Patreon of a thing that still has the energy of, a garage band, essentially. But eventually I'd like to get there. And, anyway, so I've been doing comedy 5 years. How I got started, I grew up really being interested in improv and stand-up comedy. I think the first comedy special that like really hooked me, or the first comedian that really hooked me, was Mike Birbiglia. Mike Birbiglia is not like the most famous comedian. He's super, like, he has all of his specials on Netflix. He's like, if you care about stand-up comedy, you know who Mike Birbiglia is. But if you don't care about stand-up comedy, he's not like in movies or like dating Ariana Grande or anything. That would be hilarious though, if you know him. Uh, so, and my Mount Rushmore for me, stand-up comedy wise, is probably what is it? Mike Birbiglia, Gerard Carmichael, Patrice O'Neill, and what's that guy? I always forget his name. It's Gary Goldman. I always want to say Greg Giraldo, and it's because of the G's and my undiagnosed dyslexia. But Gary Goldman, those are all my favorite comedians. And I'll hash into perhaps why later. But Mike Birbiglia, I got into as like probably like a teenager, seeing my girlfriend's boyfriend, because I watched a lot of Comedy Central and that type of stuff, and seeing his special, My Girlfriend's Boyfriend, both his specials, My Girlfriend's Boyfriend and Sleepwalk With Me Live. If you've never seen Mike, he's a very narratively driven comedian, and there's a lot of parts of his act that aren't funny and are dramatic, and it's mixes in a lot of storytelling. And like My Girlfriend's Boyfriend was just so groundbreaking to me, because I was like, you can make like a comedy album that sounds like a breakup album, you know what I mean? Like those two vibes artistically, like I didn't know you can combine them. So seeing him really impacted me and made me see comedy as like more than just dudes telling jokes on stage. I mentioned Gerard Carmichael as someone else on my Mount Rushmore. His most recent special, Rothaniel, I think is probably like the peak of what Mike Birbiglia kind of, to me, established in terms of like the and you could say whoever established storytelling / one-man show style plays. I'm sure someone was doing it before Mike, but Gerard's newest special really was like the peak of that idea of doing, for me, a comedy special that is also like really emotionally engaging and really like, leaves you like more than just laughing, but like sad, and like you learn about people and you like feel bad for these guys. And not that like the feeling bad part's like important, but it's just like it's so vulnerable. They're both a level of vulnerability that comedy doesn't get too much. And I won't spoil why Gerard's newest special. The title's Rothaniel. It's on HBO. I recommend everyone watch it. To me, I think right now I'd say that and Patrice's Elephant in the Room are the two best comedy specials to me. And I'll get to Patrice. Did I say Patrice when I listed my Mount Rushmore? I think so. Anyway. But yeah, so, and I guess I'll just get to Patrice, and who is the other one? Gary Goldman now. Patrice O'Neill's special, Elephant in the Room. All the people I listed, none of them, like I said, are like super, like I said about Mike, are super famous outside of the world of stand-up comedy. Like, especially like Gary Goldman. Like if you don't care about stand-up comedy, you don't know who I'm talking about, and that's cool. But all these guys are like the best joke writers. Let me stick to Patrice. Why Patrice is so impactful to me. Elephant in the Room, if you've seen it, is like It's not, and to put it in today's terms, it's extremely not woke, extremely not PC, but it is 30-ish minutes of just nonstop the most, oh my god, I can't believe he's saying that jokes you could hear. And like, not in I think what Patrice did is like, I'm not gonna say at all responsible for this style of comedy now that's like very dependent on shock and like, oh my god, I can't believe he's saying that, but doing so without any sort of like true nuance or substance or like actual commentary, but just for the sake of shock. But Patrice and many other comedians during that time, even Louis, was kind of unbelievable at that. And I don't know, Patrice, rest in peace, is the only one of those comedians I listed who's not still with us. And it's really like super tragedy. All of his specials, I don't even know how many he had. I've only seen the ones on YouTube. All this just to say it's a shame we didn't get more material. But Patrice was a savant in terms of what is known as irreverent comedy and talking about things you're not supposed to talk about and doing so in a way that was, some of the jokes don't age well in terms of like, hey, bro, like you're doing a voice of like, or you're doing like a Muslim people are terrorists type of stuff. But even the stuff that doesn't hold up, it's so outrageous. I think it's because he feels so earnest in his ignorance. You're like, oh no, this nigga's really stupid. Like, you are really, truly. Rest in peace. And the last one on my Mount Rushmore is Gary Coleman. Just when I think about joke writing, like, he is who I want to be. Like, Gary Coleman has, I want to say it's 20 minutes, but it's at least 15 minutes. That's just a joke about an interaction at Trader Joe's. And to me, that is like the Rosetta Stone of and like how I approach my style of comedy writing. Like, to me, I think the like most fun comedic experience from like a writing or audience perspective is when you're like 3 levels of inception into a joke where you're like, so this is a joke about Trader Joe's, but within this joke about Trader Joe's is a joke about like class dynamics. And within that, I want to make a joke about white people. You know what I mean? And it's like, you're like, holy shit. And then you pull out all the layers. So, and the state abbreviations joke, just a word economy savant. If you know, it's kind of the nuts and bolts of comedy, but word economy is just understanding how best to say things in a way that's funny and doing so in the most concise and precise way. So that's my quick rundown of my Mount Rushmore. In terms of me deciding to start performing on stage around like 20 in my early to mid 20s, one of my best friends had an improv group at his college, so it definitely was early 20s. And one year they got invited to like do a set at the what is his name? The Dell Close Marathon up at UCB in New York City. I believe now defunct UCB, which is a crazy thing to say, because that is, as you'll see, like where comedians as young as me, I'm 30. I can't even say that anymore. Gotta start. But the Dell Close Marathon, I guess I should explain what all of it is. Del Close is kind of the godfather of modern day improv comedy. I believe he founded Improv Olympic in Chicago, and I don't believe he founded UCB, but I think UCB like broke off of Improv Olympic. Someone's gonna have to, some improv nerd, please check me on that. And UCB is Upright Citizens Brigade. Again, I believe a now defunct troupe that began in New York. That the people who were UCB and worked at that theater in terms of like being the improvisers and co-teachers and the performers Pretty much all their alumni is everyone who's ever had a job at NBC in the past 20 years. Not every SNL cast member, but your Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, to your Donald Glovers, to your, I'm going to blank on him now, but just everyone who is in that 30 Rock, Saturday Night Live milieu, went through UCB or went through Improv Olympic. There's one more big Comedy Sports, I think, is the other big one, other big improv troupe, because a lot of them come, the Saturday Night Live people come from Chicago too. There's 2 feeder programs. Anyway, we were up there. They used to do this thing called the Del Close Marathon in honor of Del Close, where for I believe 3 days, they had improv shows going on at their 3 theaters 24/7. And so we did one set there, and then we just like went around the city and explored the city and got drunk and went and saw improv shows for like 3 days. And it was like the most magical time in my life. It was like, because like I said, the last night, the Herald night, we got to see like actually like Amy Poehler like improvise. So that was cool. But even before then, it's literally every improv troupe from all around the world of note comes and does a show, and some of them come and do a show at 2 a.m. in some weird theater, and you're like, what is this? And that's the improv show I remember forever, was like this exactly, like 2 a.m. We like left the bars and we're like, I think we could still catch a show right now. So it's like me and everyone, even including the performers in this theater, is trashed, and then these dudes get on stage and they're like, we're gonna do 100. I don't remember the exact number, but let's just say it was, I don't think it was 100, because 100 is not a very funny number, but they have like a 20-minute window, and they just come on stage and they're like, we're gonna do 64 scenes. And they do, and they're like, okay, give us a suggestion. And then they take a suggestion and they do like literally like a 5-second scene, and they're like, 1. And then they just fire into the next scene. And it was so funny because like after every scene, like we'd all start counting, and just the way it built, I think it was the perfect improv show for that exact moment. And so I fell in love with comedy. I fell in love with New York. I fell in love with improv. And that kind of made me go, this is like, the first time you meet your people and you're like, oh, these are my people. I think it was that was that moment for me. And so I really never did improv again. And I would like to. I love improv, but I don't, whatever. I just don't have time to do improv. In a perfect world where I didn't have a child and a 40-hour work week job, and also trying to get all this other stuff going on, I would do improv, because I do think improv is like A, the most fun, and B, the most like pure form of comedy, because it's like about listening and teamwork and like relation. It's about community, Stand-up is about me, and I'm the star of the show, and everything I think about is me, which is cool. And, stand-up, it sells better, like, as annoying as that is to say, and I feel like such a loser for saying that. I was already talking about the different feeder improv troupes for SNL, so I'm not beating the nerd allegations. But yeah, so I moved out to Portland when I was about 25, and I met some dudes who ran an open mic and were like very involved in the comedy scene there. And we hung out, and we were just like hanging out, like friends of friends meeting or whatever. And I was just like talking to them about comedy. And honestly, I think at the moment, they were, in my head, in my story, they were like, nah, you should try it. You'd be great at it. I think you should try it. I really feel like they were like, yeah, no, you should come to our mic. Like, that was probably it. But in my head, they were like, no, comedy needs you. And in my movie, that's how it would be too. So I met some people. I went up to an open mic. It wasn't good, but that's how I know I was into the shit, because it wasn't good, and I was like, that's the feeling I need. Like, cause I mean, sometimes people do well on their first time. I think I'm a naturally funny person. I feel comfortable saying that. So I'm sure like I got some sort of laugh. Like if you have a sense of humor, even if you're not doing well, you can at least make fun of yourself or the room or whatever. So I'm sure some of that was involved. But yeah, it was probably, honestly, I don't even think I was good at writing material until like a year ago. Now I don't know if that's necessarily true. Like some of my most popular stuff is still from before then, and I think my 4 types of white people joke is extremely well written. But like in general, it took me a long time to figure out like my voice and writing, and it's definitely not something I want to act like I have down to a science. But yeah, so that's roughly my comedy journey. This past week, I got the opportunity Friday. Yep, it's Sunday now. Monday when you listen to this, or whenever it drops on Monday. Who cares? Friday night, I got the opportunity. I guess Thursday, the booker for Laughs Comedy Club up in Seattle, reached out to me and was like, "Hey, Chris Red is coming to our club and asked me to send him some comedians, and we sent him your stuff. And he really liked your stuff. So would you like to open for him?" And if you don't know Chris Red, great, awesome Black comedian, sketch artist, actor, someone I really like. Literally was on SNL and did I believe we talked about it. He said he did, I think, Second City in Chicago too. So like someone I look up to, and someone who like, if I could have a career that's a 10th of what his is, I would be extremely satisfied. So I got the opportunity to do that this weekend, and I'll just say it was like on the heels. I'm not gonna say I was about to quit, because I wasn't about to quit, but sometimes being an artist, comedian specifically for me, but I'm sure any sort of artist can feel this. You just have a week where, or whatever, a time period where it's not even writer's block as much as it, because I don't personally believe in writer's block. I believe in like what I think happened to me, which is just you become so unconfident and distraught with your own abilities that like the things you do produce you don't find up to your standard, or that could make you unable to produce, which I think happens and people call writer's block. To me, the idea that you can't write like, I went to the beach and I ate a peach, like you wrote that. It's not good, but like you can, you know what I mean? I don't want to invalidate anyone who feels like that's a real thing. Anyway, so it was on a week of, just being like, man, is it not is it worth it? But do I really have what it takes? Am I really as good as I think I am, or like I want to be? And I at least compare. Like when I think about the type of comedy I want to be doing, I think about the people on my Mount Rushmore who are like, to me, the best comedians ever. Like, so I know I'm not at that level yet, obviously. And like sometimes examining your own work with that critical of an eye when you're like not at that level can lead you to like be very unsatisfied with what is otherwise very like pretty good, I think. And that happens to me a lot. Like like for example, I had a set at the club Wednesday that I was hosting at this weekend, and I didn't think it went well just because like I didn't end it perfect, like just because I didn't get the biggest laugh at the end. Honest, if I only get like a medium laugh, if I go off on anything but like rolling on the floor laughter, to me it was a bad set, which isn't rational, but it's how I be feeling. But another comedian came to me, or I posted about all of what I'm talking about now, and another comedian's like, "You literally crushed. Like, what are you talking about?" And I don't say that to be like false modest, just to demonstrate the gap between, as a creative, what you think of your work and what other people do. And so, yeah, I also like got this email about Chris wanting to work with me on Thursday, and like on the Wednesday, I got rejected from a comedy festival in Atlanta with pretty much the same exact material that established, like, credited, like, former SNL comedian Chris Redd enjoyed. These bookers at this thing were like, nah. So it's so disillusioning to do art, because it's both good and bad, all of it. It's all good and it's all bad. And yeah, I have, like I said, it was a festival in Atlanta. I'm from Atlanta. I haven't performed there. I really wanted to. And I'm super insecure about the idea that black people don't like my jokes, which I've had reaffirmed over and over isn't a thing. But, I talked about my experience growing up before, and just like, I just have a lot of issues around like the idea of wanting to be accepted by black people in the black community. Why did I raise my hand there? And sometimes I worry that I can not be. And so anyway, that's all that to say. It was a 24 hours where I went from like a pretty low to like a really high. That's pretty cool. The shows were a learning experience. I just did the whole rant about not being satisfied unless I feel I do 10 out of 10 perfect, and I don't feel I did 10 out of 10 perfect on those shows. I think it was a lot of, it was my first time hosting. I've really not an experienced host at all, so my ability, just the mental impact of thinking about, or the mental toll of lighting a comedian and telling the audience all this stuff and keeping time and blah, blah, blah. And, just, it was a lot mentally. I don't think it, like, took me out or anything, but by the second show, I was running on fumes. Also because the second show was at 10 p.m., and I wake up for work at 6 a.m., so it was hour, like, 18 of my day. That's not good math. Maybe it is. I'm not doing it. It was very long into my day, and I was having to talk to an audience of people, and I don't wish that upon my worst enemy. So, learning experience, I'm extremely grateful for it, and I look forward to hopefully having more opportunities in the future to really, like, and I met Chris, super normal. I just mean, like, super down to earth, like, just a really solid hang, and made me feel really welcome, and like laughed at my little jokes and was very complimentary, and just carried himself in a way I look up to. And I tried to just soak up as much game, and that's it. I tried to soak up as much game and do what I was there to do. The funniest, so there was it was me and two comedians, Chris Redd and Chris Mejia, Chris Mejia used to live. Anyway, both black comics. It was an all black comic show. I introduced the feature. They're both named Chris, so I'm just gonna call them feature and headliner. I introduced the feature, I introduced the headliner, and I go off stage. This is after the feature's gone on, and I walk into the bar area while the headliner's on, and this like white lady is being held there's like a wall of security in between this white lady and the feature, and the white lady is just yelling at the feature about how he's racist, and you can't say you can't say mean things about white people, you shouldn't be so judgmental, because we're black comics, we make fun of white people, what are you gonna do? And so she's, laying into this comedian about how he's racist. And then this lady turns to this black security guard, it's clearly a security guard, and says, and you're racist too, creme brulee. And at that moment, everyone starts cracking up and they get her out of there. And then the security guard comes up to me later and he was like, bro, I hadn't even met you yet. So when she called me a creme brulee, I thought that was like a racial slur that I wasn't up on, some sort of ha wee wee racial slur. So that was that. That was a great story. There was more to the story, but she was. It was at one point in my show, and while I'm performing, I have a joke where I talk about the joke. The premise of the joke is basically asking why white people are allowed to say Negro, and at one point I go, "You guys know you're allowed to say it, right? Like, so, okay, on 3, let's all say it." And then, normally the audience just looks in shock and are like, "What? No, we're not gonna say it. We're like good liberal white people." But for the first time, I did it, and a white person, just yelled out Negro. And I regret I didn't have anything funnier to say on stage. I think I just said this club's not paying me enough or something, which I was just in shock. I was in shock. And I told someone about this later, and they were like, do you think it was that same lady? And honestly, it could have been. So that's the story. Thanks for hanging out for this little comedy decompress. Like I said, the second half of this episode is going to be a conversation with my good friend Zai. I met Zai in Portland 5-ish years ago during the pandemic at a artistic protest event. I gotta ask him about that next time we get on. But we met during the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 in Portland. We were both in the streets heavily, and we've had a really wild journey as friends. We've been through a lot together, and Zai's in Dallas now. I'm in Seattle now, so we're not locked in like we once were. But I think he's going to be coming by the podcast a bunch now because I love his energy and I love Zai overall, and I think you're going to love him too. Part of the reason I wanted to do this part of just me up top was because we recorded this through a Zoom call, and basically we're still figuring out the logistics of getting the call audio to be better. I'm not going to talk about how we're going to do that, but we're working on logistics. So this one was just a dry run. That's just going to be a Zoom call. So the audio is not going to be, you're not going to get the beautiful low tones of my voice. You get through this microphone. It'll be a little more tinny, zoomy, all those things. Next time Zai comes back on, that hopefully won't be the case. But for now, that is. So just a heads up, if you can't go on the audio quality, I get it. We're going to work on it. I hope you enjoyed this part. But after this, it's going to be a conversation with me, my friend Zai. It's a wide-ranging conversation. I'm not sure I haven't cut it yet because it's like an hour and a half, and I don't know if I'm going to do that to y'all. And we say some things, so... But we talked about things from random TikTok dramas, the TikTok DoorDash kind of controversy. We talk hip hop as always, and yeah, I think you'll really enjoy the conversation. Please subscribe to this I'm still not on YouTube or whatever podcast platform. Follow me on socials at Cremberley2D. And now we're going to get to the second half of this episode, my conversation with Zai. Bye.